I dream I'm in the heart of the only world, writes Aga Shahid Ali in one of his poems, A Country Without a Post Office. Good morning to one and all present here in the third edition of Ziro Literary Festival, organized by St. Claret College in collaboration with Phoenix Rising. On this beautiful day, on behalf of St. Claret College, teaching, non-teaching staff, and the students, would like to welcome our Honorable Chief Guest, Srimati Coach Rinya, IFS 2006 badge, now serving as Secretary to the Government of Arunachal Pradesh. We are honored and blessed to have you amongst our mixed men. For your valuable presence here, we present you a token of appreciation. Now I request our Principal Dr. Father Alvin Mendoza to do the honors and present the token of appreciation. Thank you, Father. Thank you, ma'am. And also, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the writers and filmmakers from all over India for your presence. A big round of applause for all the dignitaries present amongst us, please. Now, without further delay, I would request the Principal of St. Claret College, Dr. Father Alvin Mendoza, to come over the stage with opening remarks.
A very good morning to each and everyone present here. Renowned resource persons, the team from Phoenix Rising, our collaborators for the Ziro Literary Festival, dear invited guests, dear colleagues, and my dear Claretines. Ziro Literary Festival celebrates and emphasizes the importance of reading and thinking, creating and sharing through discussions, readings, workshops, and more. Literary festivals have a charm of their own. They reflect the psyche of a society which is evolved to a point where healthy debates and discussions are encouraged, where people try to understand differences and cherish variety rather than being threatened by it. In that sense, I think India should be having literary festivals quite very often. On the one hand, we are taking big strides on the path of technological advancement, while our social progress index seemingly is dismal at its dismal low. And recent trends in our society show that we are regressing. I would like to read a quote from Leonard Cohen. "Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Ziro Literary Festival must be a catalyst for genuine transformation in the society. I welcome the chief guest for the day, Srimati Coach Rinya, Secretary, Horticulture, Government of Arunachal Pradesh. Ma'am has visited this campus on an earlier occasion as well. By profession, you are a conservator and a nurturer, qualities that are very much required in human formation as well. Thank you for taking your time out and being present here, ma'am. We welcome you in our midst. Let's give her a round of applause. I also welcome Mr. Bobby Hano, who is from Phoenix Rising, and our collaborator here for this, for the organization of this Ziro Literary Festival. I've worked with Bobby for the past 3 years in organizing this Ziro Literary Festival, I'm very happy to say that he is a person who thinks beyond, and that thinking has brought about Ziro Music Festival to Ziro, and also the Ziro Literary Festival. I'm sure there will be many more to come. Hearty welcome, Bobby. And today in our midst we have various authors, poets, filmmaker, and also various other laureates who are present here. Today's sessions will include, after this preliminary address, we will have a session on the power of telling your own story by Mamang Dai, telling stories from Northeast India for a worldwide audience. The session will be moderated by Ranju Dodum, and on the panel we'll have Karma Paljor and Sadiq Nakwi. There will be a book release soon after, Going Home by Madhu Raghavendra. And then we will have another session, Writing on and from Arunachal Pradesh, with Mamang Dai and Ponung Ering Angu. The session will be moderated by Yatar Nyokir. The next session will be an immersive session of readings and performance poetry. And the session will be hosted by Madhu Raghavendra, and on the panel we'll have Gyati Ampi, Mamang Dai, Ponung Ering Angu, Ranju Dodum, Samudra Kajal Saikya and Subitaba. Then we'll have the address by our chief guest, Srimati Kojrinya. We'll wind up for the day after the speech. We'll have the lunch break then. This year, for the Ziro Literary Festival, we have had 5 workshops. The workshops were outcome-based, and they were creative writing workshop right now with Ishwar Sundareshan from the 15th to 22nd of September. Filmmaking workshop, A Piece of Me with Aditi Banerjee from the 22nd to 28th of September. Graphic novel workshop, Word and Image with Samudra Kajal Saikya, that also was held from 25th to 28th. Poetry workshop, Light of Words with Madhu Raghavendra, 26th to 28th September. And storytelling workshop, Twice Upon a Time with Shubha Das. That was on the 27th and 28th of September. All these outcome-based workshops were successfully conducted. We have a small exhibition set up in the hall adjacent to this auditorium, wherein the outcomes of these workshops are displayed. I welcome each one of you to have a look, go through the materials, and also give you a valuable suggestion so that we can improve it for the future. Once again, I welcome each and every one of you present here. Get the best out of the discussions, the panel discussions, the poetry sessions, and participate wholeheartedly in this Ziro Literary Festival. I wish you the very best. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Father Olvin Mendoz. Now, next we have is our resource person, Padma Shri Mamang Dai, who would give a talk on the power of telling your own story. Mamang Dai is the poet and novelist from Pasigat, Arunachal Pradesh, a former journalist. Mamang Dai also worked with Worldwide Fund for Nature in the Eastern Himalaya Diversity Hotspots Program. In 2003, she received the State Warrior Olvin Award for her book Arunachal Pradesh, The Hidden Land, featuring the culture, folklore, and customs of Arunachal's different communities. A Padma Shri awardee, Mamang Dai is the author of 2 collections of poems and words of fiction and non-fiction, including The Black Hill, that received the Sahitya Academy Award in 2020 in English. Her latest publication is Escaping the Man, published by Speaking Tiger Books, New Delhi, December 2021. Now, I would request our ma'am to come over the stage and address the audience.
much for the kind introduction. Thank you, Ziro Literature Festival, Dr. Father Alvin Mendoz. Thank you, Bobby Hano, for bringing us here. And my deep regards and respects to Madam Coach Rinya, to my fellow writers who are all here, coming from different parts of India, media persons, filmmakers, and my dear students. So this is going to be a small talk on, it says the power of telling your own story. So a little bit about my journey as a writer. It's more like, field notes on the subject of journeys. That's how I look at it, because we're still on the road and we're still traveling. So these conclusions are not conclusive by any means. Understanding is really provisional, things change. So some of the ideas, going back to the beginning, I was in Shillong school, boarding school, and I think as far back as I can remember when I learned to read and write, I was always interested in writing. There were stories in my head. We were imitating certain authors, the books we read, like Enid Blyton, and then the classroom textbooks, things like that. And then there was college. I was in Delhi, Lady Shri Ram College. And then for various reasons, my elder brother and myself, we returned to Pasighat to join college, Jawaharlal Nehru College. So that was a period of returning. It was also the period of keeping your mother tongue. I picked up my mother tongue again because we were only being instructed or taught in English medium. And it was a time of meeting relatives, We were still looking beyond. I was the only one in English honors class at that time. It was many years ago. And so it was hardly, worth attending classes. I thought there was only Sir and myself, so sometimes I'd go to Sir's house like tutorials or just read up on the text. And I spent a lot of time looking at atlases, I opened these huge atlas, I studied ocean currents, I looked at coastlines, then I looked at the huge, history encyclopedias. I thought, I want to study classical literature in Athens. I want to go to university there. So this was a period of also looking beyond. But I think Mr. Hare Kojin will be here tomorrow. We were together in this very college. And he might remind you that we were also very active with the college journal. And we both won prizes for poetry, I think, at that time. I won first prize and he won second prize, something like that. He was reminding me this morning, he would have been here, but due to some work. Anyway, that was a period of looking beyond. And then after that, Jain College, I left and went out again. It was always leaving, departures, and returning. So this time I traveled around the world. I came back to Arunachal actually in the 1990s. And at that time, there was also a lot happening in the sense that there was this group of writers, poets, literature lovers based in Guwahati, Shillong, our old stamping grounds, where we had studied and spent much of our childhood and school years. So they were coming up with something that would, look at writing from Northeast India, promote basically writing in English. It started with writing in English. And this was the birth of the Northeast Writers Forum, which is still quite active today. We are all members here. Many of our friends here are also members. And at that same time, I was working on The Hidden Land and also the first book of poems, river poems. So I would like to remind young writers, aspiring authors, you know, we were all writing in our own separate spaces, thinking we don't need to get published, we just want the joy of writing. But because of Northeast Writers Forum and meetings and, you know, you gain confidence together, so River Poems was published by Writers Workshop in Kolkata. And I think publishing, if you want to sustain your writing, getting published is important, because I remember the words of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the Colombian writer, who said, you know, they also used to meet in coffee shops. There was a whole lot of writers inspiring each other, poets criticizing, praising each other. But when you get into print, you realize what he called the crushing power of print, which means you think nobody else can feel such grief as I feel, or nobody has this extraordinary story in the world, you know, this is unique to me. It is not actually. Most of our human emotions are human and they are universal. The difference is in the telling. So when you have it in print, you look at it and think, my God, there are so many other writers, thinkers across the world. And this, I feel, is an important lesson, you know, that you have to be able to compare and find your place, and slowly what is unique to you will happen of itself. It will come to you. But you can't start writing thinking, I'm the only one, you know, who has this kind of story, because the world is really full of stories. So now we come to the topic title, let's say, the power of telling your own story. Now, power I look at as the power of words, the art of fiction, and the power of narrative. Nobody can tell you what to write or how to write. You'll do it anyway if you want to be a writer. The best place to begin is just to begin, to keep notebooks. But why you write will be the question that will always follow you in your journey as a writer. Why are you saying such and such thing? Why have you chosen this subject? Why have you portrayed this character in a particular way? So these are the things that writers face as you struggle with pen and paper. I think this will keep coming back to you, this question. And then somewhere along the way, as you're living the questions, if you're honored, you might sort of arrive at the answer through your writing. And despite political engagement or writing about environment or different social issues, I think ultimately the greatest contribution of writers, poets, to a society, even as your role as witness of what is happening in that society, is the power of language and imagination. This is probably the ultimate engagement and contribution. So, a story is begun, the outline is there, some words are muted, signaling from the background. A few lines, something added, deleted, can change everything. In this way, stories change shape, color, tone. Someone else can make it their own, changing a few lines, or making someone say or think something. The author can also do this. That is why I think the first feeling and the image that stirred your imagination and made you start writing about such and such topic or a story is so important. I think of this as the original obsession. It is what is going to guide you, goad you, challenge you, and keep you struggling as a writer, since it seems so important to express this feeling. and more than literary value, what is trending, gender writing, or what is correct, politically correct. It is the feeling that matters. So this becomes your own way of telling a story. But actually there is very little that is one's own. We are shaped by so many things that happen along the way, by family, our circle of friends, strangers, and people we meet, the books we read. All this becomes the wonderful amalgamation of our lives. And mind you, you think you know your core self, you've discovered something, and you can write very authentically, but narratives have this strange way, of changing you all over again. Suddenly you encounter another self, another me, another I. So this is, I think, your multiple selves, but there's nothing wrong with that, because the act of writing sometimes is like breaking into another person's life. At the same time, you're breathing new life into what may be voiceless or forgotten or hidden. So this is the power of telling your story, but sometimes the narrative wins and changes us also. You begin to discover, if you're very honest, why am I saying this, or how do I want to say it? Am I trying to influence something? So all those questions come in. And you never know how a story slips out of your hands, because you're never in complete control, Sometimes the life of the story and the life of the teller begin to merge, and something new is born. This new birth actually is also the joy and the light of writing. I think of this as the anticipation of a larger reality, It has sprouted its own wings, delineated its own features, and taken over by a strange process of alchemy. People ask, why do you write? It is like asking, why do you pray? And do all prayers reach their destination? These are musings and musings. We muse about it all the time. I think all the writers will testify, You can't explain why you write or why you need 6 months to write one line, but you need that 6 months. It's like a pathological condition, and if anyone disturbs you, you're very irritable and grumpy, It's hard to explain and to describe. But I think writers write because they care. Viewed in this way, because writers care, it is an act of faith. There is history in a word. Behind a word is a geography, the name of a river, children's voices. There is meaning, and this meaning has a landscape and life and people. The witness, the writer or poet's voice, is the voice that illuminates human fate and links us together. So coming to story, now we're talking about telling your own story. So in this ambience, writing is not such a lonely business as people imagine. Every writer is separate and alone, but alone as a blade of grass or a growing tree, following its simple direction. I was very struck by, and I keep quoting this, is a line from the film Matrix. It's a bit outdated now, but some of you might have seen it. When it first hit the screens, it was like, wow, this is a new thing that's coming out. Matrix, the first Matrix, with Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne, who plays the role of Morpheus, and Keanu Reeves, they're standing by this door, and Morpheus says, you found the door. So Keanu Reeves is going to choose. He's reached where he wanted to reach, he's reached the door. And Morpheus says something very interesting, is that, but finding the path is different from walking the path. See, in life you think you have your aims, you have your dreams, you think I want to become this, or I want to get married, have children, I want to lead a happy life, I want to become a writer, I'll be a filmmaker or a film star. But once you reach that, you found the path, sustaining yourself and walking that path can be quite different. I say this because the path itself will offer so many doorways. A story is a storehouse, and derived from the Latin, it means a storehouse of stories, you could almost interpret, which means there are so many doors, so many levels. In literature, you will have all the different genres of historical fiction, poetry, novel, all that kind of thing. And it is the only place, because it is a country of doorways, as I interpret it, this story space, because it is a landscape, a country of doorways, you can look forward, but you can also revisit the past. Because only in storytelling, I think, can you move between different worlds. You can actually do time travel. You don't have to proceed in this chronological, linear fashion, which I always have problems with my editor. He says, but you're going back here. I say, yeah, that's the way I want to portray it. That's the way the writing is coming out. So you can do this time travel. And there's, of course, the oral tradition, especially for many of us, I think, in Northeast region. We are situated where we have no script, but we have this huge body of literature that is in the oral tradition. And it is from this environment, for many of us, that we are creating I wouldn't say canon, but we are creating the current literary scenario, let's say. And this also, the oral tradition and its usage, can also be used in so many different ways, as you'll find out from many writings that are coming now from all across the region. You don't have to tell it in a very, in the academic or really historical fashion or exact interpretation. Once you gather that meaning of what the story is offering you, it can seep into your writing in so many different ways. And sometimes it's better to just skim, even for historical fiction, I feel, because I'm addressing a very young audience. You don't have to go into deep research like I was getting stuck for my Black Hill, doing the history of Assam, the history of the Jesuit missionaries. If you skim and you take what you want, it's better because it also brings history more alive. And people like to remember and look at it again and find that it has some value in the current context. The difficult part is in writing honestly. How many moments, days have we spent searching for words, or that single lost word to give expression to a feeling that has fixed itself before our eyes and fallen into our hearts. Here I think portrayal is important, because if you ask yourself also, why do you read the books you read? Why do you like one author better than another? Or why do you remember the lines of a poet? It is because it has suddenly struck you or made you jump up saying, oh my God, this is exactly how I feel. So it could be from Latin America, Europe, China, Southeast Asia, anywhere. Somehow, sometimes, this literature finds you, and the immediate, recognizable instant is that honesty of feeling. So I think this is very important to illustrate. This instantly recognizable factor is feeling, and language and words are the art around this content that creates emotion, that consoles, arouses, and alters us. Just to give an example, I'll read another excerpt I keep quoting. Is a few lines from a fellow poet, Rajendra Bhandari. He's a bilingual poet of Sikkim. This was in Nepali, translated. Hurriedly I peep inside the mirror and find that my prehistoric face still nourishes my primeval dreams. I feel elated that my face still carries some archaeological value. I scream, "Oh, come, excavate here inside the wrinkles of my face, and you will find that statue of a poem ditched thousands of years ago." I think this kind of sums up also, the emotion, the passion, the power of words. Since time began, I think words were the first travelers. Imagine some great forefather thinking something or feeling something very deeply after a hunt or after a long migration. And then you're uttering words, and they're traveling. They're traveling and they can be maybe painted on rock caves, or they can be in symbols, hieroglyphics, stamped on a clay tablet, and then finally what we have today fall on a page with the invented tools of ink and paper. So words are travelers, and I think, I've said this before also, words can stop the clock, words can foresee the future. So these are my observations. I'll just read you a closing excerpt from Carl Sagan in Cosmos. A book is made from a tree. It is an assemblage of flat, flexible parts, still called leaves, imprinted with dark, pigmented squiggles. One glance at it and you hear the voice of another person, perhaps someone dead for thousands of years. Across the millennia, the author is speaking clearly and silently inside your head, directly to you. Writing is perhaps the greatest of human inventions, binding together people, citizens of distant epochs who never knew one another. Books break the shackles of time, proof that humans can work magic. So this is my little talk, my contribution, and my offering to you, to the young people here. I can say, just yesterday we were discussing, because this is with the Ziro Music Festival also, we were saying, literature is so boring, why can't we just go to the music festival, that kind of thing. So ultimately, there is necessity for each and everything, I think, under the sun. We have our little niches, but after this we will be rushing to the Ziro Music Festival grounds. For now, I'll just leave you with what I have said. Thank you very much for listening to me, and be kind, be generous, be good with your friends, and I think be honest even in your private conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging words and pearls of wisdom. Next, we have amongst our midst Sir Kalma Baljor and Sadiq Naqvi for the panel discussion. Now I request Ma'am Mamang Dai to come over the stage and Father Dr. Alvin Mendes to present the students with the books.
I'm very humbled to receive this gift from Ma'am Mamantai, her works, a gift to the college library. Your presence here itself is awe-inspiring, ma'am, and thank you for this gift. Our students will benefit, all the readers will benefit from this. Thank you so much, God bless you.
The next program we have is panel discussion. And amongst our midst we have Sir Karma Paljor and Sadiq Naqvi and Sir Ranju Dodo. The discussion would be on telling stories from Northeast India for a worldwide audience. I would like to take a moment and introduce Sir Karma Paljor. Sir Karma Paljor is an award-winning Indian journalist and entrepreneur who co-founded Atvi Infotainment in 2018. Its business verticals include EastMojo.com that reports extensively on Northeast India. Karma's career spans 22 years. His first brush with broadcast journalism was with BCTV 18, from where he moved on to be a founding employee of CNN News 18. He has been awarded Reporter of the Year by IndianTelevision.com in 2010, the prestigious Ramnath Goenka Award for Excellence in Journalism, the ENVA Award, and is the Fellow of Kamal Nayan Vajaj Fellowship and a member of the Aspen Global Leadership Network. We also have an eminent panel judge, Sadiq Naqvi, a multimedia journalist currently based in Guwahati, Assam. Has worked for various publications including the Hindustan Times. As an independent journalist, his work from Northeast region has appeared in many national and international publications including the Washington Post, Al Jazeera, ABC News, Earth Journalism Network, the Times of India, Scroll.in, Outlook Magazine, and many others. He has reported on foreign affairs, borderland citizenship, statelessness, identity politics, transnational crimes, and corruption, among other issues. This panel discussion would be moderated by Sir Ranju Dodo, who is a journalist documenting the culture, politics, environment of Arunachal Pradesh and the Northeast region and the intersection of these topics. His reporting work has appeared in various national and international publications, including The Hindu, Mongave, The Citizen, The Washington Post. He is the first Pulitzer Center grantee from Arunachal Pradesh. He also writes short fiction and poetry that has featured in World Weavers and New Asian writing. So now, without further delay, I would like to request the panel judges and the moderator to come over the stage and address the audience.
It's good to be back at the new academic building. So we're back, but at a new place, and at the same place at the same time. First of all, thank you very much to the college, Father Endos, for having us, inviting us for this discussion. Bobby's here from Phoenix Rising, the Phoenix Rising team as well. Very our gratitude. I'm not so sure if our presence will be as awe-inspiring as Ma'am's was, but but we hope to maybe spark discussion and debate after the discussion, so after our panel discussion is over. Introductions have already been made, but just to say from my end as well, I'm personally honored to be here sharing the stage with Agya Karma Paljor, who's an eminent face from the region for the last over 2 decades. He has been, our face, and when we were in college, we used to see him on CNN, and we used to think, one day we'll be there. Later you realize that maybe you don't want to be on camera, maybe you want to come back into the Northeast and you want to work from here, which is what he's done with East Mojo as well. After spending years outside of the region and reporting from outside the region, he came back and wanted to tell the stories from the region. So thank you, sir, for being here. Sadiq is a bit of an anomaly. He is actually from outside the region, but who's come to the region and is reporting extensively, ensuring that our stories get told outside of the region, not just nationally, but also at an international level. So Sadiq's also, by the way, I have always met him. I always only met him online. We have a lot of friends, but this is the first time we're actually meeting in person. So thank you to the Ziro Lit Fest for facilitating this opportunity as well. So where should we actually begin? First of all, we always have these discussions of Northeast, and whether there is something called Northeast. Why is this a cluster of 8 states get categorized as a region? Since we all want to talk about our differences, every state is different, the issues are different, but then we also have similarities, because of which, for political reasons, for social reasons, it becomes the Northeast. We don't collectively say Rajasthan and Gujarat as, or Maharashtra as, reporting from Western India, or reporting from Southern India. I don't know if there are panel discussions held in Chennai, who talk about the problems and challenges of reporting from South India. I don't know if that happens, but in the Northeast we keep having these things. Why do you think? I would like to ask Aga first. Why do you think that is? I mean, is there a Northeast reporting? Is there something called collectively reporting from the Northeast? Should there be? And if there is, what should we do?
Okay, before I answer that question, I'd just like to say thank you for having me, Principal Sir, and the organizers of the Ziro Literature Festival. It feels, for me, every time I go to a literature festival, it feels like a cook from a fast food joint going to a culinary festival where all the chefs are there. So I always think that I'm the fast food cook. I can dish out food quickly. I can make chicken chili and chow mein. But I don't know whether I can go up to that level of giving you something, of the stature of what the cotton blue chefs can give you. Coming to the question of telling stories from the Northeast as a collective, I think we find comfort in being together because we are small states, all put together. And whenever we come together, we feel safe. But whenever we return back to my Sikkim or to your Ziro or to your parts of the world, then again you feel disconnected. So it's a very selfish reason why we come together. And the same goes for telling stories, because I had the option of upgrading maybe to an international channel or to be the bureau chief of Reuters in Afghanistan. But instead, I chose to come back to the Northeast because I felt that our stories were not being told enough. And the complaint every time I went any of the forums is that why is Northeast stories not covered? So that's the time I decided I do not want to wait for the others to tell my story. I don't want people say wait for a Delhi journalist or a Mumbai journalist to come and tell my story. I am proud of my region and we will report from here. So I think, Raju, to answer your question, is the comfort of being together, and there's nothing wrong with calling ourselves a collective and jointly pulling in all our resources and telling the stories together, because I think we lack resources there.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me here. I also kind of agree with Karma that, being Northeast, it has its pitfalls. It's unfair to sometimes that states are losing their identity, in the sense that the people are only learning about the region and not about individual states. People are not talking about Arunachal Pradesh or Assam or even smaller states like Mizoram or Meghalaya individually, but referring to it as a bigger landmass. But it has its advantages. It gives you leverage. It it gives you a lot of leverage. Like in terms of media attention, if something were to happen, if you were to start reporting just about a small happening in Meghalaya, it's likely that it won't get picked up because nobody knows where Meghalaya is, but people know what is Northeast India actually, you know. So there is that advantage which comes with referring to this whole landmass as one, all the time talking about it. So that's what I feel. It's fair to point it out that people need to course correct sometimes, but in the larger context of things, I think it has its advantages.
Right, but then when you mention that, is there something that you think as journalists, as reporting from the region, is there something that you can do that can change that perspective? For example, if in Lakshmi Nagar in East Delhi, a man gets bitten by a dog, that's going to make headlines. And not just in the city edition of the Times of India, but in the main paper. Massive landslide in some part of Arunachal, or recently there's been a question paper leak on the civil service examination in Arunachal. If that happened even in Assam, that would have probably gained a lot more traction, a lot more headlines. If it happened in Bihar, what do you think you can do as journalists to maybe change the audience's reception towards these kind of narratives and stories?
See, I think speaking of these happenings, like you mentioned landslides, you mentioned paper leaks, and you compared it with Delhi. Delhi is a national capital, so every small thing in Delhi will get attention. It may be a dog bite, it may be a chain snatching, it may be a robbery, and things in this part of the world will get ignored. That's the reality. That's also that's how this beast functions. So it will keep on happening. But to answer your other question, how to take these stories forward, I think we need, like for example, landslides. So we need to kind of think of ways to connect the developments here to what is happening globally. For example, landslides are also happening because of climate change. So you need to put these developments in that larger context. So once you start putting them in that larger context, then it gets the attention that it needs globally.
Right. So sort of weaving in the narratives of what's happening across the world with what's happening at a very local level, which brings me to Agya. We were talking earlier about your reporting on Cyclone Phelim, which for which you were awarded. Disasters in the Northeast keep happening. Do you think it's fair to say that your reporting got the kind of traction that it did because it happened in a place that's physically and metaphorically more closer to Delhi?
I don't think so, because reporting from natural disasters, which I specialized in, and cyclone filing, reporting on cyclone, that was the first cyclone where we had advance warning. So the journalists reached before the cyclone, and we were at that place. I think the award at that time I got for a number of reasons. So it was not just for reporting the cyclone or reporting from that region. It was for technology, because that time WhatsApp had just been launched, and our OB van, the broadcast van with the umbrella, that went down and we couldn't broadcast because the storm was so fierce. So I used a BSNL 3G network at that time with WhatsApp, sending footage from that location where none of the other channels could report. So that was the technological aspect of reporting from cyclone. That was one of the things that happened to me. The second was, while all the other journalists were just interested in showing houses being blown away or what happened at the immediate, I stayed back. So I told my editor that I want to stay back in Orissa and I want to report from all the areas which have been impacted, and I went from village to village with a lot of difficulty because the roads were not there, reporting on the plight and the condition of people. If crops were lost, how many acres were lost? If houses were destroyed, how many houses were destroyed? So that also was an eye-opener kind of for the administration and for the NGOs to see the kind of work that was needed. So I think for that impact, that story got attention. Not really because it was the award which I got, It was not merely because I was reporting, about a cyclone. Not merely because even Orissa doesn't get that kind of attention it deserves. So Orissa, I think, can be clubbed to the northeast. Sometimes I think Jharkhand can be clubbed to the northeast. Even West Bengal can be clubbed to the northeast. We have a bigger family that way.
When you mentioned that, this is what I wanted to ask. Was it how difficult or easy was it to convince your editor to let you stay on a little longer and report a little bit more in depth?
So that was the time when television still practiced journalism. So there was journalism left. I think that was the last, the last bit of apong left in journalism. Yeah? So after that was finished, then, Father, with your permission, I'm using apong as just an example here. So I think that was the time when editors did let you breathe and go and do good stories. Not anymore, because today television journalism, which I don't watch, I can't watch, is led by anchors and not by ground reporters. So it is not a journalist game anymore, but it is what the anchors think journalism should be. So now, the landslide in Tupul, where 75 people got washed away and so many armed forces, soldiers got killed. Now, if a soldier would have been killed in Kashmir, the attention, the national attention would be different. A terrorist killing a soldier, it captures the attention. It suits their narrative. So then the story will be different. It will be plastered across news channels. But here, some soldiers dying in a remote place in Manipur with very little television coverage. And it's a landslide, so you can't blame anybody. You don't find the enemy. Who's the enemy? Is the landslide. So landslide is not such an attractive enemy for them to go after. So that story they will put in the back burner. But I went and we did lots of stories and the response was amazing. The views were amazing on our YouTube channel. So I still think that there is space for good journalism. There is space for, good storytelling.
Just not on television.
Just not on television. Because the nation wants to know.
It seems, on TV, the more the nation wants to know, the lesser it knows actually. And coming from that, which I wanted to ask Sadiq if he's seen a shift in the kind of attention and the space that's given out. For those unfamiliar with Sadiq's work, Sadiq is primarily a print journalist. He writes rather than speaks the reporting. Have you seen a shift in, we used to, when we began, we used to hate when people from Guwahati would come and stay in Itanagar for 2 days and they become Arunachal experts, something. And I'm like, well, I'm sitting here, you can ask me to write the report, why you have to send somebody from Calcutta or Guwahati or Delhi when we are here. But, from my experience, I've seen that papers, at least the online media is trying to delegate work to reporters who are on the ground in the place where the reporting is to be done from. Have you seen a similar shift and the kind of attention and basically print space that reporters are getting now?
I wouldn't say that print space has increased substantially. It has gone up marginally. Papers are slightly more interested, I would say. The news reports still get one column, unless something very, very big were to happen. Even something like the landslide where how many 75 odd people died in Manipur, it did not get the kind of attention it deserved. It did not get any any journalists coming from Delhi. They would have, if it was happening in Uttarakhand, for example, hordes of them would have arrived in no time. There would have been a beeline of news channels, but here there was none except maybe East Mojo or a couple of other local channels who were covering it, and that's how people got to know. But to be fair to national media, things have slightly improved. Also, as you were saying, I am seeing a shift in the sense that people are these days more likely to commission somebody who's on the ground rather than sending somebody from Delhi. But there are reasons for it. The reasons are, for example, people have realized that a lot of Delhi reporters do not have the depth to report about this very, very complex region. It's unless you have spent some time here, you are likely to get 90% of the things wrong. You will not be able to differentiate between Meghalaya and Mizoram, which I have seen a lot of people do. They have, if you don't know, then you don't have any sense of geography, which will hamper your reporting. So there is a shift. There is a shift, and there is more trust on people who are already on the ground. That is happening.
And speaking of the complexity of the region, Aga, your work on the Air Force, Air India, sorry, got you the Ramnath Award. That was a complex subject. The Northeast, as we know, is a complex subject with its states and its communities. Every state has a different socio-political context. The relations between the tribes are different. Sometimes it's similar, sometimes it's not. How do you meander or tackle those issues? Do you meander or do you tackle them?
To be very honest, sometimes you have to meander. Sometimes you cannot take certain issues head on. Not like my senior journalist, Patricia Mukim. She's very brave. She takes issues head on. And sometimes, as somebody who's just started in the region, although we are 4 years old, East Mojo is 4 years old, you have certain difficulties. But to tell a complex story, you need time. You cannot tell a complex story, you cannot parachute into a region and land here and just call me and say, Karma, I need context, I give you context. And you can't just run around and report on a complex issue in like 2 days, 3 days. Maximum their editors give them is a week. This cannot be possible. I spent 6 months and plus about, I think in total, about 8 months to investigate Air India. And the investigations were in the US. I had to do some investigations, the London office, get some papers from there. So there was like great investigation into who killed the Maharaja. And the issues are not complex. How do I explain aircraft layoff in New York, which cost the government thousands of crore rupees every year? So how do I explain a bilateral between two countries? So all these are complex issues that ultimately killed or nearly killed Air India till the Tatas took over. So you need time. It's like kiwi wine. If it settles well, then your story is good and it'll be loved by everybody. But if you just make it for the Ziro festival and you want to serve it now because you have to sell it, then it doesn't work.
That's 2 alcohol references. Third one is strikeout. So when you're talking about meandering and how much time you had for reporting, 8 months you said. Do you think with the current trend of how people are on social media, how people want to consume content, short content, quick content, they want it quick, do you think we have the luxury to report on complex issues by investing, even 3 months of time on a story? Do you think we have the luxury now?
No, it's not the luxury. It is them I'm worried about, all my friends sitting wonderfully dressed with ties, that I'm worried about you because not all of you, some of you or majority of you want to consume things very fast. You love to sit at home suddenly and go through those reels endlessly, and you don't have time to read. You don't have time to look at good investigative pieces or read a good paper on your region. So that is going away from us and it's becoming even more difficult. The moment we take on a subject which is difficult to handle, where I cannot meander, I get legal notices now because people don't have patience. And we've been hit by so many legal notices that now I don't want to respond. Now, just recently I got one from Gujarat about the zoo and about how elephants were being taken from here. It's a very simple story And there's even a question mark. Were elephants being smuggled from Assam and Arunachal? There's a big question mark. And then our reporter goes on to say that how animals are being taken from the northeast for a certain trust, which could be owned by a certain Ambani's, blah, 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 blah. And the legal notice is running into pages and pages and pages. So I read, I consulted with my lawyer, and I ultimately decided that I don't want to respond. The moment you go and do a story on how land of the tribal land has been taken over for a massive solar project, it's a multinational company from the US, you get a legal notice. So it's not just people's attention span. I don't think there is even minute respect for good journalism. The moment you do a story that is against, if I do a story against Bobby Hanu, he will immediately send me a legal notice. So patience of people is running out. And so this pattern is destroying journalism. One, we don't have the audience who will read. The more audience I have who will read, they will support me, right? I don't have that audience. I have 100 people reading and appreciating those kind of stories. And then the moment the story is out, you are bombarded with all kinds of pressure tactics and pressure groups, and so it's getting more and more difficult. That's why I use the word, you have to meander gently. Lahe lahe.
Lahe lahe. I was afraid he was going to make another alcohol reference. That's strike out for sure. So I think, how do you stay relevant as somebody who works primarily in the print media to hold and because to tell a story in the written word, I mean, you need at least 15, 2,000, 3,000 words to tell a complex story. How do you hold an audience's attention which doesn't want to read beyond 300, 400, 500 words max?
I think you need to work on how to make the story interesting. That should be your first and foremost focus. You have to tell a story. You have a story in your head. You need to then work on characters. You need some people. You need some color. Once you get characters, then you can write a 5,000 word story and it will hold people's attention. What most stories lack is color and character. You can't be just giving people only information. I mean, it gets really, really boring. People don't want to read. They get bored. They get bored reading numbers. They get bored reading, stats. They get bored reading plain facts. So once you start narrating people's lives and how, and start telling the story that way, then that's how it makes it more interesting. And the good thing about being a freelance journalist now is that you have all the time. You don't have to hustle for 5 stories in a day when you're working for a newspaper. The editor is after your life. This murder has happened, this rape has happened, this army person has died, this avalanche has killed so many people, all in a single day. And something big has also happened in the evening. So you have to keep writing 200 word, and you have to keep churning. By the end of the day, you have to send all of it. Now, as a freelance journalist, I have all the time. Recently, I worked 3 months on a story. And it managed to come out really well. I was really happy with it.
I think those are encouraging words for the mass comm students. I believe there are some mass comm students around here.
I just quickly want to say, so whenever I did a documentary or I did a story, I used to look at my editor. So when I played that tape back to the editor, and I used to draw a graph, because my editor at that time, Rajdeep Sardesai, has an attention span of an ant. You cannot hold his attention span. So I used to quickly make a graph. So on one side of the graph is whether Rajdeep is interested or not, and then this side is the time. So my documentary starts, and he's sitting on the chair, and he's looking at the documentary. If he starts going like this, that means my graph is falling down. Yeah. So if he's interested, then he'll go forward like that, and then I'll take my graph up. So a graph for the young filmmakers, a graph always helps. It's like your heartbeat. Draw a graph and see what are the peaks of the story that you have. Okay, I have this so I have the headline. Your headline is your ground, right? You write a very good headline which will grab people's attention. But don't write a misleading headline. If your story is about, without alcohol reference, about pigs, the headline must say pigs somewhere. You can't talk about a beautiful deer or unicorn. The headline has to be very honest, but it has to be attractive. So the moment people look at the headline, they will say, wow, I want to read that story. Or the picture. So you draw your graph. Okay, headline's good, your graph goes up. Picture's good, your graph goes up. Suddenly you talk about, say, Keanu Reeves in that story. Keanu Reeves loves pigs, pork from Ziro. Yeah. So your headline will go up and say, wow, then your graph is like shooting up, And then slowly, once you give the background, animal husbandry director said something, then the local resource person said something, then again and finally you said Keanu Reeves is going to come to the Ziro Music Festival. Again, your interest graph goes up. So always work on your graphs and know where your curves are like your heartbeat. Because if it's a flat line, it's a boring story. There's nothing in that story. It's lifeless.
I'll go to him and then I'll come back to you. We'll allow one last alcohol reference after that. Words of advice for our young would-be journalists in the future?
Just be honest with your work and just go out in the field all the time. There is no shortcut to good journalism. You have to be out there, you have to meet people, you have to meet them every single day. If you don't do it, you will never be a good reporter.
Alcohol has to be there somewhere.
There is no. So alcohol is banned from East Mojo. There is no alcohol at all. So seriously, if you guys want to come work with us, I'm willing to mentor and I'm willing to help any of you. You can either come to Guwahati and take an internship with us, or if you want to start reporting and wanting us to help you, you can do that from Ziro itself. You've got a very good internet. You can work with our editors. You can reach out to me. karma@eastmojo.com is my email ID. So come for internships and all. And 1 month is the time I give everybody now. If you're good, 1 month is enough. If you're not good, then you can work for the Republic, the other
I wasn't briefed on the format of it. Are we taking questions? Should we stick to the schedule of it's 11:30? There was a tea break. Should we stick, or can we continue? We can continue. I actually wanted to put in a few last questions actually to both of you, sir, both of you sirs, and also apologies. I think we were supposed to have Tongam Rina join us. But unfortunately she couldn't be here, so this has become a manel. So this is not by design that we are not being not being favorable to our female audiences. This just it is unfortunate series of events that led to this. What I wanted to know was now that we live and coming back to LitFest and ZFM after a 2-year gap, how has journalism changed in this? Should we call it a post-pandemic world? Have you seen any changes to either one who wants to take it up first?
I think things are coming. There was a big change. How people were editors were reluctant to send reporters out throughout those 2 years, except some who were willing to take that risk. Journalism had become mostly a desktop job. You were calling up people and you were reporting. You did not know what was happening on the ground. Some of us were scared also to go out because of fears of catching the virus. But largely things are coming back to normal, I would say. Like people are, it is slightly coming back to how it was in the pre-pandemic days. I would not be able to say about how the budgets are. That Karma would be in a better position to kind of tell us on. But otherwise, in terms of being a reporter, I think we are back to where we were before.
No, but I also meant to ask in terms of the kind of content that's coming out and the kind of the reciprocation to those kind of content. Have you seen any changes in the audience's attitude towards consuming news now?
I think audiences got really bored of reading only about COVID. So they're happy to read anything which is not COVID,
For digital, it's fantastic. Because of COVID, we could really, break boundaries. East Mojo would be now, since I am digital, I cannot lie like the television channels. I have got the analytics. Everybody can see my numbers. So post the pandemic, say before the pandemic, we used to about 5 lakh, 4 lakh people used to read East Mojo. Post pandemic, we have almost between 7 lakhs to 10 lakh people coming to the East Mojo site, reading East Mojo on through their mobile phones. 99% of the people are reading stories on the mobile phone. The curated stories where we work 2,000, 3,000 word stories which have impact and which are deeply researched stories, even there we are seeing traction. So if 30,000 people read the short stories where some scandal has happened, somebody has forgotten to do something, or some actor has kissed somebody, or some scandal, you have 30,000 views on those stupid stories, but you have about 100 to 500 people reading my 3,000 word articles. I value my 300 people more than I value the 30,000 people, because those are the people who are deeply involved with us. They understand my values, they understand their stories. So that's been very good. Our YouTube channel has been growing, but I still don't have any social media on my phone because I want to keep away, but there are lots of people and I'm really thankful to them for watching us and subscribe. So please like, subscribe, and hit the button here. Follow us. I'll be grateful. And there are giveaways also later.
I just want to put in a few last questions. Sadiq had mentioned about how any small happening in Delhi will naturally grab more attention. So, because we are talking about getting our news out of the region to a wider audience, are we victims of distance or just plain apathy?
I think it's both. There are a multitude of challenges if you kind of think of when it comes to reporting from this area. For example, like, if something were to happen in, say, Dapo, which is further like 200 kilometers from here, sending a reporter from, let's say, for example, if Times of India wants to send a reporter from Delhi, it would mean at least 50,000, 60,000 bucks. Coming from Delhi, taking a flight, then taking an expensive taxi, and then getting to Dapo, and also a lot of time. It means like at least 8-9 days. So there are those challenges as well. There are challenges of geography. There are challenges of money. There are challenges of in the sense that we live in a space which is heavily militarized. It's not accessible to everyone. So a lot of stories get lost in that because because we have a very what you call a bully as a neighbor. So it has to be there has to be a lot of military presence and so on. But at the same time, it's also apathy. Like editors in Delhi are not concerned. They think, okay, fine, something has happened in Dapo. He may not even know where Dapo is, So why would he want to even cover it?
You don't agree?
I totally don't agree with Sadiq, but the editors are concerned. I mean, most of the senior editors sitting in newspapers and all, they're all concerned. I went to the journalism meet this time in Jaipur, and most of the editors of Telegraph, Scroll, everybody wanted to meet me, and they all wanted me to do. But the problem is that they want me to do their work. They want to tie up with East Mojo, and they want to pick up our stories, and they want to give a backlink, which I'm fine with. The problem is about the tyranny of distance and the money it takes, like Sadiq talked about. Because you are investing 50,000 in a story that might not get you so many views. You are sending a television journalist to an area which will not give you TRP. So it doesn't make business sense, and we have to get out of this thing that, oh, we are left behind, oh, we are not being covered, and do it ourselves. If we do it ourselves, we will do it ourselves because the story is for us. APSC paper leak is not a story, it's a story, but it's a story for us. The story, it concerns the Arunachalis, and we have to be more aware about it. So my problem is with our journalists across the Northeast. We are lazy, we do not do our work properly, we send horrible 600 word articles by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening, press releases and all. Nobody wants to do the hard work, that's the problem. So forget blaming the editors who are sitting in Delhi. First let us put our house in order, let's do our journalism properly. Then the world will come and cover you. Then Joe Biden will also come here if your journalism is strong.
Maybe the next ZF. And I'll just round it off to where we started the discussion with, and take off from what Agya said also as well. When we're talking about trying to get our news out of the region, both of you, should we care? Why should we care? Why do I want to get our story out in some national media I mean, my audience, primary audience is here. I'm writing about them. Inke bare likh rahe hain. If as long as they read it, I should be okay with it, right? Why, or should I care? Okay, no, I want somebody sitting in Kodikanal.
So when you look at the pillars of advocacy, because we are in a federal democracy, so all the pillars have to be aligned, that's why to support the Northeast narrative, to fight for our cause, to highlight, it needs to be in the national media as well. I mean, what I'm saying is like a paradox. I don't need them, but yes, I do need them. Do I need to tell people how incredible Ziro Valley is and how incredible it is? Do I hate it when they compare Ziro Valley Music Festival with the Woodstock? I'm uncomfortable because this place is unique. So I need that advocacy as well. Do I want to tell stories about the Meghalayas, the sacred groves of Meghalaya? Yes, I need to tell those stories. About our tribal cultures, I need to tell those stories, and I need a wider audience, so that there is greater attention. There are IAS officers, there are IFS officers sitting in Delhi at powerful positions who can make a lot of change, but they don't have that information. They are friends of the Northeast. So to reach the real friends of the Northeast across the country, we need to drive our narrative. And it forms a very key pillar of the advocacy that we need to do for the Northeast.
Speaking of friends of the Northeast.
I think same goes for international media as well. Like, you need your stories out all the time. Like, for example, if you see what's happening in Mizoram, you have crisis from Myanmar spilling over, you have a lot of people. You have almost like 40,000, 30,000 people who have been living there for the last almost 1.5 years. And initially there was total apathy towards them. The Mizos were collecting money on their own and feeding them and providing them with other necessities. It was only after some media attention that things changed, and the central government started giving some money. It also got international traction because international agencies got involved. So I think it is very, very important to always get the stories out. I mean, people in the region will get to know eventually because there are multitude of ways to know. There is WhatsApp, there is Facebook, there are all kinds of Facebook groups, there are all kinds of WhatsApp groups. Things will percolate, so to say. But getting the stories out to the wider audience, you need to put in that extra effort, which is very, very important, I would say.
These have been insightful conversations, and hopefully we've been able to address questions that people already if they had in their minds. But are we taking questions? Should we, or Father? If anyone has any questions.
Yeah, happy to take questions.
Maybe we can take 2 questions.
Students, any questions?
There's some discussion going on, so I'm just wondering if there is any. I think we've solved Northeast journalism. There are no questions. We've solved the issue. We can proceed further. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us here. And once again, thank you, sir. Take photos with him.
Thank you, Raju.
you, Sir Dodo, Sir Paljo, and Sir Nakwi. Your words, ideas, and perspective has purged our soul, and now it's time to purge our stomach and appetite. So we have a small tea break. I would like to tell our esteemed guest, the washroom is on the right hand side, the exit is that side. We'll have a 15 minutes break, and I request everyone to be present after the 15 minutes break. And for the students, your refreshment would be served that side, backstage. And please do not litter around. Madhu Raghavendra. And we thank Sir Madhu Raghavendra for choosing this platform to release his book. Madhu Raghavendra has written 3 books of poetry: Make Me Some Love to Eat, Signal Bills, and Being Non-Essential, all published by Red River, New Delhi. He is the founder of Poetry Kosher, a movement that has created free spaces for poetry. He uses performance poetry as a tool to advocate human and environmental rights and collaborates with global artists to create cross-disciplinary poetry experiences. In 2020, he participated at the Pan Emergency World Voices Congress of Writers UN headquarters, New York, and was a resident poet at the International Writing Program. So it gives me immense pleasure to welcome Sir Madhu Raghavendra to come on stage and release his book, which is titled Going Home.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm of course happy, but I'm a little more emotional than happy because she said I chose this platform, and I'm really glad that this platform chose me. And I've had the privilege, this is my second book release on this platform. And the first one was in 2019. It was called Stignobills, and Sri Tagetakiji was present here. Bobby, the father, was here. And I'm really happy and glad that with a fresh group of students, we are able to bring out another book. And I don't know, you're recording this, but I think I can go on record and say the book doesn't even have, I mean, the ISBN just came in. I told my publisher, listen, I don't need the ISBN, I just want to have the joy of sharing this here, because it was a very beautiful memory of sharing my second book here, and third book happened in COVID, of course. And before I can go any further with reading poems from the book, I would like to first release it officially, and I would like to invite Mamang Ma'am on stage. And with Mamang Ma'am, I would like to invite Srimati Gojrenya-ji Ma'am to be here. I would like to invite Father Alvin. I would like to invite someone who's almost been a great supporter and advocate, Bobby Hanu. I would like to invite Karma Pajoji to be here. And I would also like to invite my fellow artist Samudra Kajal Saikia and my publisher, not the last but always a great, and Dibya. Okay. So I'll wisely use the next few minutes that I have before we move on to the next session. I would like to, this book is also a celebration of a lot of things, and this year celebrates 50 years of Arunachal. And I had gifted this poem to our Honorable Speaker, Pasang Dorji Sonaji, and to the Chief Minister of Arunachal. And this poem goes something like this. It's called 50 Years of Arunachal. 50 years of Arunachal Pradesh. The sun is a monk, that brings the first floating lamp to the divine scriptures of Tawang Monastery. The palms of the shining pagoda open for the world to wear robes of light, where wise sages arrive for oneness with the blue waters of Parashuram Kund, where the hymns from Donipolo Dere and churches make the magnificent valleys fertile with love, where rare families of rhododendrons find their earth, great hornbills find their home, orchids find their lyric, and tiger mithuns find their stories in ancient folk tales, and tigers find brotherhood in a nature-loving culture, where heroic tribes sing under unbolted skies at the bonfire of fraternity and harmony, where rivers awaken from Himalayan snow bring orange orchards and pristine meadows, where forest reserves conserve animals and butterflies. The heart turns into a cane bridge, one end of which is forever tied across the meditating lakes of Anini and sways like a mountain flower in silent breeze. And a new heart, which is born out of visiting the land, shares an endless boundary with unfading memories. Arunachal, how beautifully you have turned gold. Just two more short poems. Because I told you, and also students are here, and I love Mamang Ma'am's final message, and be kind and keep doing what you're doing in an honest way. And I couldn't release my third book here because of COVID. None of the festivals happened. But I wouldn't mind sharing a short poem, Artist, that you keep thinking, why do we write poetry? And I wrote this, so artists were called non-essential during the pandemic. And I didn't know what to do. And I thought we are non-essential, most of the things. Why are we asserting so much that we are essential? And you wouldn't believe when I wrote that poem, I was driving my partner to her. She's a government doctor. She's the first MD in Arunachal from Arunachal Pradesh in homeopathy. And I'm really lucky to have her as my partner. I think this land has given me much. And I was driving her to office and I'm like, I don't know why we keep saying we are essential. I don't think we need to say that. And that, I just put up the poem somewhere. And today it has been quoted in South African Parliament for budget speeches. It has been performed in at least a dozen universities across the world just by putting the poem out there. And it has been composed into movies, classical songs. It will be performed on 9th of October in Finland. So you don't know the power of art. You just need to keep creating, keep creating. And that's all. You never know what will come out of it and how. So here goes the poem. It's called Artist. I don't mind being the non-essential. Even a child takes its mother for granted. It does not run back to its mother until it is hurt. Nobody first thinks of water when they arrive at an exquisite dinner party until they are choking. I don't mind being the non-essential, knowing you will come looking when things are broken and nothing else works. Art is non-essential. Art is non-essential until it is not. Thank you. And just the final two short poems. Harmony, a very accessible poem. Harmony. When you feel lonely, sit by a river. When you feel empty, gaze at clouds. When you feel tired, lie on the grass. When you feel defeated, befriend a firefly. When you feel anxious, shut your gadgets. When you feel pensive, listen to the rain. When you feel rushed, follow a snail. When you feel restless, take a hike. When you feel heavy, hold a leaf. When you feel happy, climb a tree. When you feel angry, watch a butterfly. When you feel disconnected, grow roots. When you feel full, step into an ocean. When you feel useless, plant a sapling. When you feel something, share it with nature. What you learn from nature, share it with yourself. Because I won't be leading my session that I'm hosting, so that's why I'm using this 5 minutes that I had. And this is the closing poem, which is the title of the book. going home. And of course, you are at an age where you're wondering, always we have to do big things, and that pressure is always there. But what is big? How big is the question. Is it important that you stake it all, or is happiness even important, is the question. And this is just a few line poem. Going home. If I'm told to go big or to go home, I'll choose home. If I'm told to go big or to go home, I'll choose home. Is there an end to how big you can go? Why do they make it sound like going home is losing? If you have found home, you have won. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Madhura Gavendra. We're really looking forward to read your book. And next we have panel discussion. It is titled Writing and Noun from Arunachal Pradesh with Mamang Dai and Ponung Iring Angu, moderated by Yatar Nyokar. I would take a moment and introduce Ma'am Ponung Iring here. Ponung Iring Angu was born at Pasigat in East Siang district of Arunachal Pradesh. Her writings are heavily influenced by the natural surroundings of our state and the folklores of the place where she was born and grew up in. She has written and published a collection of poems, Whispers from the Mountains, a folktale, Doying, a collection of short stories, Strewn Petals, and a biography, Fading Visages, besides writing for anthologies and other literary compilations. She had been serving under the government of Arunachal Pradesh as a joint director in the Department of Women and Child Development and has now retired and settled in her hometown at Pasigat. And our moderator, Ms. Yata Nyokar. She is a research scholar at Rajiv Gandhi University. Presently, she holds the post of Assistant Editor of Prayas magazine published by Arunachal Pradesh. Literary Society. She is a doctoral candidate at the Department of English, Rajiv Gandhi University, and her research explores the literary tradition of writers of Arunachal Pradesh. She has translated the works of contemporary Arunachali writers into English. Her works are published on noteworthy platforms like Zuban, Scroll.in, Prayas, and Metrics Anthology, Arunachal chapter of Northeast Writers Forum. So please, I would like to welcome Ma'am Mamangay, Ms. Ponu, Ma'am Iring Angu, and Yata Nyokwe, and address the audience.
Thank you, Abhi, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. We are honored to have with us today Mamang Dai Madam, Ponung Iring Madam. Both of them are such a well-known figure in the literary arena of Arunachal Pradesh that it hardly needs an introduction. And it's a privilege for me to moderate this session. The theme of this session is Writing on and from Arunachal Pradesh. This panel discussion is all about trying to define and understand what is literature from Arunachal Pradesh. Since we have given limited time and it's a vast canvas to cover, so without further delay, I'll start my question. So my first question to both of you. What is literature from Arunachal Pradesh in your view?
Literature from Arunachal Pradesh?
Yeah, in your view.
In my view, it's something to consider, because the process I feel is still ongoing. Arunachal literature, written literature, is still quite young. And we don't have that, literary or canon of literature or that body of literature like, say, European study groups might have, or other countries, American literature or South American literature. We don't have that written literature so much. It is still in the nascent stage, I would say, if we don't talk about the oral literature that we have.
Would you like to add to it? Since Arunachal Pradesh is a tribal state and we have speech community, so in that regard we have a rich culture of oral tradition. So ma'am, I often wonder as a scholar, why do we often define us from Western point of view when we define literature of Arunachal Pradesh? Even though print literature came very late, but then we have rich culture of oral tradition. So in that sense, can we consider our literature from that point of view?
No, I think you're very right. That's why I was saying if we discount oral literature, and this is not to be, Eurocentric, or I think what is happening now, at least among all the writer friends we know, is there is a certain, a definite turn towards, our neighbors in Southeast Asia, or we're looking at writings from Sri Lanka, Nepal, or even the Far East, the Japanese authors, rather than what many of us, in this generation, we grew up reading only English literature as such. Then you have the French classics, you have Shakespeare. Even for the central services, I did literature as my paper. So that was from, Beowulf to Jane Austen. So we know all that body, not that I'm discounting it, but I also feel, and I have returned to this body of oral tradition, and I feel we have this. But mind you, there is also the Scandinavian mythology, the Native American mythologies, all speech communities, all unwritten but spoken or performed in the oral tradition. It is very closely linked again to ritual practice. So these are also performance-based oral traditions that I feel ecologists have a term for, the predicament of the place faithful. Now, if you don't have the forest anymore, you won't have the tiger. So our oral tradition is a bit like that. If you don't have the habitat, if you don't have the shaman priest, if you don't have the chanter, you're not going to have this oral tradition. And this oral tradition also, you're the scholar here, is subject to change, So that is what is happening. It's creeping into the writings of many of the writers from northeast part of the country, like Eastern Kire is there, Avino Kire, writers in Mizoram. But I think it should go beyond that also. That is why I'm saying, we have to find this environment that we find ourselves in as writers, because we have no precedent, to fall back on, like, say, English literature might have their Shakespeare's, France has all their, or Spain has Cervantes, and you can quote Proust. We don't have anything like that. We had a dictionary published by the missionaries, Adi Miri English Dictionary. So those were the first little letters that came to us, alphabets. And then from there we had early writers. I think you know more about, Tagang Taki and people who attempted writing, but they were mainly translations of the oral chants.
When we go back to the past of literary history of Arunachal Pradesh, we find that works of first generation writer, be Tagang Taki, Lumar Dai, Yesi Dorgi Thongji, are in Assamese language. In this context, can we assume that in the initial days, the Assamese literature had a major influence on in the growth of literature in Arunachal Pradesh? And
get to read them, neither did I get to read the translated works. I guess the translated works are not much also, but yes, from my childhood, we all are, I was very interested in stories and all, and I grew up with the folk tales. I was lucky enough to have been living with after my parents passed away. Actually, I was there, and maybe if had my parents been there, maybe I wouldn't have been, so close to the village roots. So being in the village, growing up with them, with my grandmother, my aunties, and the village people there, I had, grew up on folktales. I wonder how many of you all even know your folktales or your own customs, why, and all these things, Okay, I think diverting. So, but anyways, what I feel is like Mamang has also said, me Mamang. She gets angry when I say Mamang. So, actually, yes, as our writers and authors, we have still a long way to go. It's just a very, a very new thing for us here, seeing people writing. And I'm very happy, I'm very glad to know that so many are, coming up. Like we have this Subita also. They are, of course, new writers now. And of course, here she is, who has been doing research, she's a scholar. And me, I was just a writer and just writing just for time pass they call it, no? Time pass ke liye. And like I was doing wrote it as a hobby, and I'm sure most of you all also must be writing. And I always remember what me Mama used to tell me that whenever you get a line, whenever you think, it comes, poetry, no? I think most of you also must have sometimes got that thing that, I need to write this, Something just bursts into you. So when you don't write it, the next time you try to recall it, it doesn't come. So what she told me, Onu, you take a pencil and a paper with you all the time. Whenever that thing comes, you write it down. And that's very true. That is what we need to do. And talking about, the early writers, about Takti and Lumardai and all, who used to write in Adi and Asmis like that. I'm very sorry. I cannot really make a comment on that because I really didn't go deeply in depth through their books. It was just skimming over, like who told us? Somebody had mentioned that. I guess it was Alden sir, or was it Navik sir, that we need to just skim over. So that is what we used to know. Ma'am said. Mimi Mama said, yeah. I'm getting mixed up, sorry. So yeah, I just skimmed over the books and all. So that is how I used to do, because I never had the time to really go in depth. But what I feel is that, yeah, our roots are always there. And for the others to understand it, they need to come here, live with us, and then understand how and why we are writing like that, And maybe it might not be interesting to them because, as me Mamang said, that when you're writing a book, you need to connect with it, Maybe I might not be able to connect with what Malgudi days, but I really love it because I have been there in the south. Mostly I've been there because my children were studying there and I used to stay there for months also there. So somehow I get a connection with that. I understand. I went to the villages also. And whether we go to higher up in the north, Chandigarh and all, my job was there. We were posted there. Say for 2-3 months we had to stay in the villages. So I could get that essence of what they write. And Ruskin Bond, of course, many people don't agree. They don't like. They say that it's too childish or something. They say, I don't know. Some people do not like him, but he was my favorite. And I really love him. Why? Because I can connect with him. He's also from the hills, from the mountains. And somehow I connect with his writings. So that is what we people also, everyone, those and who are like reading, I father, late Dr. Dainiring, he was like, when he was MP over there, minister also in Delhi, in the central government, there he had emphasized on, like, bringing in English and Hindi instead of English medium, because he understood that Assamese I don't say Assamese is a bad language or anything like that, but Assamese was limited, within Arunachal, maybe within the Northeast at the most. But Hindi and English, they've got more far-reaching effects, and English especially, it goes beyond also, no? So that is why this language came, and it has influenced a lot, yes. Assamese, why? Because Assam was a neighbor and we were also under Assam also. So many things, of course. Maybe me, Mamang, will be better in explaining things. So maybe you can add on to that.
Half of good writing is to be a good listener. So I was listening very carefully to Ponam, and she was talking about chef and cookery. So I will talk about a birthday party. My birthday I celebrated in Pasighat, and suddenly I saw her singing very loudly, "Happy birthday, Mama." So I stared at her because I'm older to her, we're cousins, but she's supposed to address me with the prefix of Mimi. So she also went, oops. It was a liberty she took, so that's why we were mentioning this, But anyway, talking about Assamese writing, I think Assam has always promoted literature in Arunachal Pradesh. Some of our earliest teachers, people who gave their lives. I went to a function in Simsagar where they were commemorating a great Assamese writer. And I met old ladies who told me, that their son's father, her husband, he went across the Brahmaputra, it was Nefa in those days. And they were the teachers and, the pioneers who gave some education, the first writing script to our parents and our parents before, So they did dedicate themselves. When Arunachal 1972 was declared as, the Northeast Frontier Agency, NEFA, many people were a bit taken aback. They said the acronym stands for No Entry for the Assamese. It was a joke. But then, I think language, it is important because our first writers were writing in Assamese. It was the medium of instruction they grew up with, like Pai Lumar and Mr. Y.D. Thongchi. Now they're well known. So through them and the literary awards and interest they received from Assam, Assam has a very long and deep tradition of writing and, writers, interest in literature. They have translated French texts. They have done all that. So their interest kind of, I would say, promoted an interest within Arunachal for writing. What is this thing going on? Then you have now Hindi scholars who are writing beautiful poetry, prose in Hindi. And then you have the English language writers like Ponung and myself because of, again, the various circumstances. But I think writers will, if the feeling is strong enough, you'll just write in any language that is available to you. You'll write songs, you'll write lyrics. And writers who don't write in their mother tongue, even though sometimes they're compared to, paper flowers or something, it's not the real thing. I don't think that is true. We should not be afraid we're writing in a foreign language, say in this instance, English, because the English has become regional, it's become like a regional language. I think we're putting our own idioms, metaphors, using it. And many writers are exophonic. They don't write in their mother tongue by choice. And mind you, we are all more or less bilingual, trilingual, we know our mother tongue, it's just that we're writing in another tongue or another language because it has the script. But Assamese literature, yes, it has promoted the growth, the preliminary, stirrings of a literary writing tradition in our state.
Okay. There are writers like Takub Jirdo, Yabin Jirdo, Tony Koyu, Tagang Tlake and others who write in indigenous languages. But in indigenous language. But in the present state, where the indigenous languages are gradually disappearing from the scene for being ineffectual in gaining lucrative careers, in such a case, what is the scope of writers writing in indigenous language in Arunachal Pradesh?
I guess this is quite a difficult question because scope, what I don't know whether it's really true, maybe Dodumena will be knowing better. They say that in every 100 meters, the dialect changes. Though I have seen, though we speak Adi, just after like the Padams, they speak a little bit differently. Then again, I don't know among the Nishis if it's a similar thing, or among the Apatanis if it's a little bit different. So what happens is that when they write in their own dialects, the thing is that not everybody will read, except for that person or that small community she belongs or he belongs to, isn't it? So I feel that unless their works are translated, maybe there won't be much scope. Yeah, translated works can be done. And one thing also I would like to add here, when they write in their own languages, of course I haven't read them, so what do they actually write about? Do they write stories?
Yes, ma'am. Poetry.
Poetry.
There is a
Okay.
poetry book.
All right. Yeah. So that is scope. That way, only through translation, maybe then there can be some scope. Otherwise, it will be just within their own community, because maybe I won't be able to understand what she's trying to or he's trying to write. That is the thing, I guess.
Ma'am, would you like to add to? Okay. So, do you think the works of writing on Arunachal Pradesh truly represents the ethos of Arunachal in their writing? Because there is a general connotation that the experience of tribal writers, which is unique in its way, cannot be shared by outsiders. Because it is a general connotation that experience of tribal writer is unique in its own way, which cannot be shared by the writers of outside. So in this context, can we say writers writing on Arunachal Pradesh truly represent the ethos of Arunachal Pradesh in their writing? Experience of we tribal.
It's difficult to say because I think as a writer, I also must confess that we are in a way outsiders. The other day I've been working very hard on this long chanting narrative we have called the Abang, which is supposed to be the classical literature of the Adi group. We belong to the Adi community, but it is in an old language, the shaman language, which I can't understand, but someone has done it in Roman script with the old language, so trying to understand, I can see it's very beautiful, it's very poetic, but I was reading another article in a paper by one of our officers from Pasighat, and he had written something about the Siang River. And I felt you could feel the real feeling and the honesty, We sometimes we're kind of writing from the outside because we have this background of having read so much literature that things might get a bit mixed sometimes. And looking at this old Abang book, suddenly I noticed a new thing. It was, the Adi Abang, and then in brackets, Agomko, Gompilko. So that translated as a word. It sounded very humble, a moment please, a word. And I thought, maybe I'm really missing the real ethos, the real big things, you know. We are also translating this into our writing, but I think until there is a larger body of literature, you know, beyond, you can't quite at the moment classify Arunachal literature. I think these things come, it's a hard thing to say, but it comes over periods of ups and downs. You know, civilizations have revolutions, they have civil unrest, they have exile, migration, loss of territory, and then all kinds of literature and poetry is born. So I think it's still quite early to qualify what is Arunachal literature.
Would you like to intuit with Mama what she said about expression of tribal experience in the work of writers who are writing on Arunachal Pradesh?
Okay, you mean the writers who are from outside who are writing on
Arunachal Pradesh?
Yeah, we were just discussing about that. I think even they had that in that panel. I was also listening to, he was also talking about that people from Delhi coming and commenting on our like situations and all. The same way what I feel is that, yeah, some of the writers who do not stay here, they come here just for a period of like, actually I'm talking about non-fiction work, okay? Not fiction things. Even fiction, of course. They come here and they just collect some, you know, information and all those things. And then after that, they just start writing, you know, without really understanding or trying to understand why and how things are happening here like that. So, yeah, I think so. Like, I don't think that's a very good idea that people, yeah, I wouldn't agree to that. People, if they have to write, I think they should stay here, live here. Many people, I do not say that people from maybe from Bihar cannot write about us, or from Mumbai, or from the south, they come and they cannot write. Not that. What I mean is, they should live here. Many officers, many workers, many teachers, they've come and lived here in Arunachal, you know. And they have written so beautifully about Arunachal. They go back and they've written such things which we ourselves also are not aware about. You know, like even this, I've read about some writer from outside. He had written from I think it was from European state it was. I don't remember the name, but of course, he had also written so well about our stories and all, you know. It was so beautifully written. So I would say that we need time, like they said, the earlier what the earlier panelists had remarked, that we do need time. Only then we can, you know, write about a certain place or people. That's one.
Okay. Despite the significant literary contribution, Arunachali writers and their works are not widely recognized. So my question is how to overcome limitation of literature from the state to larger audience? And in your view, what can be done to make new generation of Arunachal Pradesh to read? Yes, to read more.
I think it's already happening, you know. These are, okay, you can ask all the questions and you can have big discussions, but on the ground, I think if you want to start writing, you just have to begin. And I think it's happening. We have, okay, a fine example here is Subitaba. Then we have Gangpo Sumian, we have Onglat Miao, people writing in English. We have Jamna Bini doing great work in Hindi. And they are all on social media, you know. They're very well known across the country. They're meeting people from abroad, getting into their own, you know, niche, as it were, and representing Arunachal Pradesh. So what kind of representation, how it is being shaped, all that will be for the work of, you know, literary critics later on in years. But now, at the moment, it is just, it has already just caught up in a matter of a few years. Like literature has just happened in Arunachal. I think a lot of people are surprised also. There's quite a lot of writing coming out, you know, young poets. Milo Anka is a terrific poet, she's not here. But there are lot of young writers writing English, Hindi, Assamese not so much. I think Assamese has been more or less abandoned, but Hindi and English are coming together. Both fiction, non-fiction, research-related work.
Before we open to the panel to the audience for question, I would like to request both Mamandai ma'am and Ponongiring madam to talk a bit about their latest book, Escaping the Land and Fading Visages, just briefly.
Actually, this Fading Visages is about my biography, sort of a biography on my father and my journey from not knowing anything. Actually, my parents passed away when I was really young. I was right around 6 years, 5 years, something like that. And growing up without knowing anything about them, so suddenly one fine day I started to think that, okay, I think I need to know about this man whom everybody knows as Dr. Dainiring, and they keep asking me about him, but I didn't know anything about him, really, because we were very small when he passed away. And when he was with us also, like he was always away, doing, in Delhi sometimes, or wherever working. So that way I couldn't know anything about him. So during my research, only then I came to know a little bit about him, what his work was, what he had contributed to the country, or to our state. All those things, it just started happening. So this is some sort of I'll say that catharsis for me, from being a lost child to knowing who I am, something like, and knowing who my father was, all those things. So it's just a small biography, and mostly it's about my emotional journey, that thing. Thank you.
Escaping the Land is also based quite a lot on the stories I heard from my parents, because all the time we were hearing about, this place, Nepal, and we grew up in the Nepal days, when there was no communication, no electricity. From school holidays, we would trek to this place called Sepla, which is now Sepa, and we walked for 6 days. We were carried on the backs of porters. My father would be leading. It was a 6-day camp, step by step. Then my father's accounts of, the 1962 border war. So this has been on my mind, because even the incident like Aching Mori incident 1953, which was really the birth of administration in Arunachal Pradesh, Nepal in those days, or the frontier tracts. That is, it is reported by, we were lucky to have good people like Nari Rastamji, advisor to the governor, and some early administrators, but they were also new. They didn't know the place. A lot of things were based on tour diaries of the officers. And these tour diaries, okay, they're in the Assam Secretariat archives and all, but I had the primary source of my father. And he was telling us, and my mother also, not to be left behind, because she accompanied him on all the tours, and she also had her dreams and big stories. So this is an amalgamation, right up to, we had and still ongoing, the militancy in Tirap and the eastern districts of Arunachal. So you may not know it, but I was really quite active in politics during a certain period. We were always there at the Congress Bhavan, and this gave me an into how things operate. It showed the growth of the state also. It was very interesting, but of course I soon realized I'm not cut out to be, in a political party. But the result of those experiences is put into this book.
Thank you, ma'am. As a reader, I would also like to take advantage of this stage, sharing my view on reading this book. Well, when I read Fading Visages, I cried a lot. It is a story about, as a reader, I'm sharing my experience. So, it's Fading Visages. It's a emotional journey of a daughter knowing her father after his death. So that book is, I mean, how I felt after reading that book. And Escaping the Land. When I read this book, I was awestruck. Uh, like how beautifully Mama Ma'am has created history, both written and unwritten history of Arunachal Pradesh in a very creative way. And this, all the characters has their own story to tell, and every character represents the transition of Arunachal Pradesh. So this novel is like a historical journey of Arunachal Pradesh from Kojum Koja to present state of Arunachal Pradesh. Uh, Now panel is open for question. So I request our audience, if you have any question, you can raise your hand. So, any question?
How do you connect your emotions when you write story?
Pardon?
How do you connect your
How do you connect your emotion when you write stories?
Okay, how do you connect your emotions when writing a story? Story. Okay. First, let me tell you a story. Like you mean when I was writing my father's story?
So basically, every book you write.
Every book we write about poetry and all. No? Okay. Yeah. How do I connect? It's a very difficult thing. Like I told you, it suddenly comes. You know the thing. Like I said, I suddenly woke up and I thought that, okay, I need to write about my father. No? I write a poem. Sometimes I write the whole thing from the beginning to end in one shot. Okay? And sometimes what happens, though I try and try and try, it doesn't come. Like me, Mama said, it could take a week, it could take months, it could take years. So that is how it is. So connecting myself is, okay, when I see, like when I was coming to Ziro, I saw it was so beautiful. Okay, the pine trees, the cosmos flowers, everything, the air, the people, the rice fields, it's so beautiful, you know, and I sort of connected with it. And when I go back, maybe these things will come back to me, you know, and I'll start writing. So this is how you connect. It's not how do you connect, it just happens, you know. I don't know if you can just add to it.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a rather large question actually, because emotions are very tricky things, you know, and emotions can also change. So as a writer, as a young writer, you know, you want to throw in all your emotions. I suffered this, I felt that. But give it a few years, you'll find it has metamorphosed into something else. And it should come into something bigger, something larger than that particular emotion and that moment. That is when it's going to have an impact. This is very difficult in poetry. If I think of my early poems, weeping and whining and, you know, romantic and beloved and sadness and sorrow, then you think, what's wrong with me? Slowly, time itself will do the job, I think. And you become what you might call a more mature writer, but without losing that initial, you know, depth of feeling. But it should, I feel, have that balance or go for that larger reality where then you really connect with people. But keep that emotion and, you know, keep it as something precious, as something of value. This is what you had, this is your experience, because nobody else will tell the story that you want to tell except yourself. But it has to grow, you know, it has to be bigger than just what happened at that moment.
Since we are running out of time and we have to stick to the given time limitation, So we have to wind up. But before we wind up, I would like to ask you both, any word of advice or general note for our young aspiring writers?
Okay, my word of advice is what I have been writing, of course on and off I've been writing, what I have seen here. I mean, if you really, like me, Mamang had said that if you want your work to be like, bought, somebody needs to buy it, or you want to have it more spread widely, I feel that you have to tell a good story. It has to have a good story, maybe, because the 4 books I had written, among the 4, this one is really going on. Till today, it's still going. I don't know, maybe people like it, or maybe they're using for research work. I have no idea, but this doing is still going on. It's a collection of stories, okay? So even from outside also, they are buying this book. So that is my advice. When you write, try to write something which will be interesting to yourself also and to the readers also. You keep that in mind, and I'm sure you all are very good writers amongst you, and many are hidden, but then you all don't come out. You need to come out. That is what I mean to say. Thank you.
Okay, very quickly I'll just say, first exercise, why don't you try writing nothing like crime, detective fiction. Try a short detective story based in Ziro or somewhere, or a science fiction, maybe a UFO has landed just there in the paddy field and something is going to happen in the middle of the night. Because detective fiction, I find you have to cut away with sentimentality, you have to know the area very well, because where is this, investigator going to go, which street did he cut through, did he know that house from where he's going to watch the suspect, all those kind of things. So for a short exercise, go for detective fiction.
Thank you, ma'am. For enlightening us with your well-informed discussion. And thank you, everyone, once again for being with us.
Thank you, Ma'am Mamangdan, Ma'am Ponugiri, and Ma'am Yathardokul. Now we have a poetry time. So I would request the host, Sir Madhu Raghavendra, to take over the stage.
Really looking forward to the poetry reading. Just Mamang Man said that I've been talking so much today, so we won't give her any more opportunity to talk, but read poems. And so inviting Mamang Ma'am on stage. So I would also like to have our fellow poets today are Gyati Ami, who needs no introduction. She is the HOD of English department. And on stage, the brilliant journalist. Let's have Winery ma'am on stage. I like the fact that she was also a joint director in the Women and Child department, apart from being a fabulous folklorist and a writer and a poet, because I have always felt that the whole social, especially the humanities department in government or universities, it always helps to be empathetic, be a writer, or be an artist, and I'm really glad. So inviting you on stage, ma'am, Ponungering ma'am on stage. Do you want to take a water break or something? Okay. So I would like to invite Samudra Kajal Saikya on stage. And Samudra has been taking a beautiful workshop on graphic novels with some students here since the past 3 days. And his film has been featured at Cannes, and he's a brilliant animator musician and a filmmaker. He's one of those. Let's have Subitaba on stage. She has already said she's emerging writer, emerging voice from Arunachal across the globe. She has also been mentored recently in one of the UN things by Arunachal. So we have 6 poets and the time is 45 minutes, so I'm dividing roughly 7 minutes each and not doing much of talking myself. So let's start. Why not, Subi? Subi, please take the stage and read your poems, please. Yeah, that's why we keep last. Is it possible for one of the volunteers to get a few bottles on stage? Maybe 2 bottles of water. Thank you so much.
Madhu, how many poems can we read?
I said 6 to 7 minutes. Yeah.
6 to 7 minutes.
Yeah. So please, so also it's equally divided, no discrepancies here. 6 to 7 minutes. I think around 3 poems come in 6 to 7 minutes. If short.
Very good afternoon to all the students. My respects to the faculties of St. Claret College. I'm very happy to be part of Ziro Literary Festival. I have visited Ziro 3 times, and to be a part of this literary festival, I feel honored. So I'll be reading 3 poems. The first one is called Melancholia. I had written this poem while I was traveling on my own. And while we are traveling on our own, it's fun. We see so many new places. But there comes a point when you feel a bit lonely and alone. So this poem captures that moment. Melancholia. I woke up in the dead of the night to find Melancholia lying beside me. I pushed her away. She rose off the bed, but lingers in the shadows behind the parched curtains. With her eyes dark like the night, she waits for her moment. In the morning, she tries to slither inside my mind. I breathe her out. She wriggles. I breathe her out. She hangs on. Still I breathe her out. She persists. So I jumped out of the bed, packed my bags, and rushed out of the room to escape Melancholia. I walked zigzag to trick her on the roads of Baker Street, among the crowd of people drinking beer outside the pubs. I hide myself in the soft, comfortable sofas of the furniture shops. I seek safety, sipping the hot, steamy Japanese soups. At last, I make it safely to the airport. But realizing that my luggage just got heavier with each withdrawing steps. I took a long sip of wine to flush out any chances of Melancholia catching up with me. I look back, quick and impatient, to seek my departure. I ran towards my gate, past the duty-free perfumery shops, definite about outrunning Melancholia. I reached the plane, sat down in the window seat, clutching a soft pillow and a warm shawl. I put on the flight earphones to check the curated movies on the screen, and momentarily reveling in the smiling, presentable faces of the flight attendants. I stared out of the window. London was raining. The evening sky hung over like a dark curtain with silver tears falling from the heavens. I turned back to realize something astonishing. Melancholia had caught up with me. She sat right in front of me, staring right into my eyes. When the plane lifted up, she flew along me, embracing me in her shivering arms and wet memories. She urged me to evolve and understand the poetry of things. I finally accepted her, letting melancholia dissolve and disappear into one of my multiverses. So that was my introduction. The second poem is called Sometimes. I wrote this during my master's time when I was going through a lot of different emotions as we all humans go through. Sometimes. Sometimes I feel like a lifeless leaf, flowing with the winds of the world. Sometimes I feel like a nameless ghost on the rooftop, silently watching the stars disappear into dawn. Sometimes I feel like a blind girl who cannot trust any hands on the crossroads. Sometimes I feel like a man whose heart was sliced on a table by his lover. Sometimes I feel like an old man whose wrinkles run deeper than his regrets. Sometimes I feel like a small baby crying for warmth of love and security. Sometimes I feel like a heartless person whom nothing can cure, who wants nobody. Sometimes I feel like a corpse, last memory of a smile in the dead eyes. Sometimes I feel like a big palace with 1,000 empty spaces but no room. Sometimes I feel like a storm that rained endlessly but couldn't burst. Sometimes I feel like a writer whose stories lie hidden under piles of incompleteness. Sometimes I feel like a poet with an inner resistance against the pace of the world. Sometimes I feel like the world, a place with varied faces of different seasons and reasons. And sometimes I do feel like myself, a halved heart that never loved anything. And I'll just read one last poem. This is from my poetry collection, Dear Bohemian Man, so I'll read the title poem. This poem is inspired by my love for traveling and also my love for wanting to see and experience different emotions. Dear Bohemian Man, there is a story guarded in memory. If you hear it, you may cry. Cold, untold tidings floated on the ceiling when I prayed near Darjeeling. Arrived your village, unburdened my pillage. I'm here to trail your pilgrimage. The Great Wall of China, footsteps between pagodas, monks meditating your anecdotas. Limbless gypsies with accordion playing to you for few coins near Greek architecture of reconciliation. Colors of Indonesian sky, heard your smile overfly upon blades of leaves last July. You sang a song so charming, winter streets of New York warming to your smile so disarming. Your sound tales of London, from a telephone booth abandoned, rescues me from my days mundane. Must have got tough to forget something that was rough, when you couldn't undo that was enough. Immigrant in the neighborhood, comparisons of skin to coffee scoops, in lieu of conferring brotherhood. Injustices they play in dark, when you were born with a spark that would lead lives to a mark. To love and to trust, when it all ended in tainted rust, a shipwreck of Titanic from the mast. My world isn't bright as your shores, my journey's not as amusing as your detours, but there is a poem lucent like meteors. Your incandescence gleam, bring light to my closed-eye dreams, leading me to a world of eternal realm. So may my soul, encased in words, keep you brave like a victor's sword, and propel you like birds in a cord. Because there is a hope, pristine like a dove, that I often write of. If you feel it, someday you may think of. Thank you.
Thank you, Subi, for your poems on travel, emotions, melancholia. I now invite Ampi to read her poems.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll be reading 2 poems today. The first one is titled as Free Bird. As someone from a patriarchal society, we are often bounded by a lot of strings attached to us, and this is something that I dedicated to all those young ladies who cycle those strings and try to fly. So here it goes. Tell me if I'm ugly. Tell me if I'm ugly. Tell me if I'm bad. Tell me if I'm unapproachable, but don't mock me. Don't call me names. Don't breathe your foul smell on me. My heart is fragile. My mind is a messed home. And my soul is a tin sheet of ice. I may freeze. I may break into million pieces. And above all, I may no longer be sane ever again. So let me be this once. Let me fly to the high sky. Please don't clip my wings, because I have always been a free bird in heart, a free bird in heart. The next poem is The Window. It's more of a metaphor here. So the poem, this particular poem was inspired when I went to Anini. Recently I went to Anini on a trip, and the place where I stayed, the homestay where I stayed, there was this one very tiny window in the room, just one window, and and it was very beautiful when it was opened. It was very beautiful outside, and I just felt something in that moment, and I wrote this. So here it goes. I looked out, I looked away. I looked out, I looked away. I looked out again, I looked away again. Yet there came the light, the blinding streak of light, filling me with all the love, filling me with all the hope. And in that moment, I found myself again, looking not out, looking not away, but looking within the window of my heart, and life seemed to be once again a color-filled dome, a dome of all the seeds that it could hold in it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ampi, for sharing your poems. I now invite Raju to read his poems. Is this first time you're reading in a literary festival, Raju?
It's the first time I'm reading out anywhere in public. I am
Beautiful.
still.
Let's have a round of applause.
I was as surprised to see my name in the list. I'm still a little bit old school that I like to write my poems and read them in the privacy of my bedroom, but it'll get a little uncomfortable because so much of reading out poetry in public is actually performance. And what I noticed is that it's a little bit opposite of like telling a joke. If you have to explain the joke, it's a failure, but with poems you have to explain the context of why you wrote it, when you wrote it. And in that same vein, and as Ma'am Amang had also said, that when you're young, you tend to be a bit more emotive, and then you look back and you think, how stupid of me. Kind of getting this feeling with the first one that I'm going to begin with. I wrote this during one of those times. It's called Hope Falls. And please excuse my lack of theatrics and performance, because I won't be able to do any of that anyways. We fall into the abyss, into the pit, dug by our own actions, our inactions, formed of our misdeeds. Yet, blame we shall our misfortune. The tide rises, the tide falls, time after time. The virtues we thought we held dear, the promises we swore we would never break, we break. The bonds we forged, the unending gaze we held, fade. In time, all wounds heal, the scars fall off, but some cuts run deep, many leave scars. The brave among us, and there are a few, stare at the pain until they feel it no more. For most, though, pain is victor. In time, all wounds heal, so we tell ourselves. Most bleed us dry. How do we weather the storm, the quiet, constant, piercing sword, kissing our green-hued veins? How do we heal? Hope, that powerful verb that turns punishing when it morphs into a noun. Hope, it is what bestows a belief. Hope, that feeling that everything shall heal, that time itself will turn back, and that the scars will reverse and turn skin once more. Hope, no more. I'm sorry to end it in a cynical note, so there is no hope. This was something I wrote. I spent a month in Basar when the Bascon used to have an artist residency. Well, previous year you were there. I think Madhu was also there the previous year, and he discovered love. I discovered commonality amongst us, amongst our fraternity. I spent a month in Basar, so when I was in Basar, with the way I look, people obviously assumed that I must be Galo, and so they would often speak to me in Galo. And I found a common thread amongst us, but then there's also differences amongst us. This was to celebrate the differences and the commonalities and the current situation that we live in. It's called Tani San. You know how John ka beta son, so Tani ka beta, Tani san. So it goes like this. Yo loga, they asked me, and I would respond appropriately, for I understood what I was asked. We are sons of Tani, we are told constantly. At every conclave, on every dais, during Mopin, Nyokum, Dri, Sidoni, and Solom, the rich politician, chief guest, tries his best to speak Tani's common tongue, telling us that we are the same. That is until they want to change the chief minister. Then I am an Ishi, then you are a Galo, then you are an Adi, he is an Abatani, she a Tagin. Then we are Tani's children, born of different mothers. We need to be breastfed individually, separately, each hungry for more. Thank you. I just do one more. This one is untitled. Untitled, sorry.
3 more minutes.
Again, this needs a bit of explanation for those of us who are not familiar. I think humans and death always share a very complicated relationship. With our traditional beliefs, it sometimes gets a bit more complicated because when it comes to accidental deaths or untimely deaths, the rituals that we do are different for somebody who would have died of natural causes or died of old age. When somebody dies of an accident, we tend to, we don't want the bad juju coming back to us in our home, so the preferred method is that they are buried at the place, the site of where the accident took place. So this one is about that relationship to death that we have. In the place I call home, we do not take to death kindly. Here, On every turn and twist, we suspect a ploy. To self-harm is weakness, and hence it must have been murder. Death by accident is an evil, one that we do not want to bring home. So we leave them outside our gate on the site where they met their fate. Thank you.
I'm so glad, Ranju, you're writing poems because Tanisan needs to come out, definitely. And because, you see, the approach to poetry is so different. And I'm so glad you're writing. Please do continue. We look forward to more poems from you. And now I would like to invite Onugering ma'am to read her poems. Ranju and I have known each other for 5 years now, and I think I was doing a poetry workshop at the State Central Library in Itanagar when we first met.
Okay. While I'm reading, I hope you all don't go to sleep because I can see most of you are half asleep already, and I'm really grateful that you are bearing us, you know. Okay, this poem which I'm going to read is on the forgotten land. Actually, it's about Pasighat, from where I belong to. My friend Sandhya, she's now in Delhi. So she had called me up and she was asking, okay, hi Ponung, how is Pasighat nowadays? So this, you know, made me write this poem. All right, a poem, or call it poem in American, I think English it is. Most of you all use it as poem. All right. She asks of me of a place that I once knew. Sometime, somewhere, long time ago, a forsaken land in a forgotten time, some time back. Now, Pasighat has changed a lot, you know. Hidden somewhere in the olden times, how do I tell her the land is no more? Because in her thoughts, it's that Pasighat, okay? How can I tell her that the woods have all died? How do I tell her the rivers have dried? And the remains of the land are but shadows of the past. I try and recall the places bygone, when the woods were so green and the rivers ran deep, when the sky was so clear and we roamed without fear. Those times, you know, we used to leave the doors open and go to sleep. In the villages, they had no locks also. I think some of you must have experienced that when we never used to lock doors. But today, what do we have? Bara gates, we lock, such high, you know, boundaries we make. So that was the time when we roamed without fear. Now the curtains are drawn and the shadows only haunt. Roaming the concrete, hardened lands in a windswept place where the ghosts now reign. It's all silent now. Everybody goes to their own places because they're scared. No longer the lands, birds fly in those clear, happy skies. No longer they sing in a joyous refrain. They've since long wind past for the far distant lands, where the skies are still blue and the sun shines true. To a life we knew in a land we grew, when the skies were blue and the dreams were true. Is that the land you ask of me? I asked her, is that the land? The times are different, now it's different, and the places have changed. Dreams are not shadows lost in the past, submerged forever in the quicksands of time. Okay, I'm also a little bit with this. And the next one, please bear with me, okay? This is a song of a river that also is on Siang River. It's the same as anywhere you can call Dikrong or what you call Dering Kameng River or wherever. It's about a river. Actually, Siang River. She dances and gurgles as she winds through the dales, skipping and turning through mountains and vales, murmuring tales and secrets of yore. It has been there since when, even before we were born. From Pele say the river has been flowing, so it has so many tales hidden within her. She flows in haste through rocky terrains, I asked of her to tarry a while. Would she not stay for just a while? She heeded me not and tumbled along, scattering space with happy abandon. Thus she flows to forests and dales, straining and tearing through hills and plains. Morning and fall, through sunshine and rain, she thunders and plunges to the waiting plains. In silence, she flows to an unknown world. It's a different world for her now. When she comes to the plains, with concrete forests and towering stones, a choking world of grime and waste, and yet she flows, kissing the clogged shores. And then she stops and struggles to pass, but the walls are so strong and relentless they stand. Man playing God has made the mighty wall, the dam. She breaks and falls against the man's mighty walls. She goes and strains against it. She clashes and heaves against concrete and steel, crashing and breaking, but all in vain. She never stops as she dashes and falls. She suddenly surges and breaks man's frail walls. Forming and rising with each mighty fall, she floods and crushes the low concrete land. Heeding no pleas nor the cries in vain, tossing and churning, she swallows the land. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your poems. And it's in a way like eco-criticism also that what you've written. So thank you so much for giving us that perspective. I now request ma'am to share a few poems with us. Yes.
I'll read one old and one new. This is from the first publication, River Poems. It's called Small Towns and the River. Actually, it was written after a death. We had just all rushed back to Pasighat, an aunt of mine. She died young. She had a reputation, for being rather beautiful. She died in Delhi, and her body was brought back on the ferry, and we were waiting in Pasighat, and I ran in and I told Uncle, hurry up, they've arrived. And he was combing his hair, grief makes you do all kinds of things. He was like, I don't know if he was trying to, control his grief, but at that moment I thought, oh gosh, this is how it is. And that image stayed with me. This poem has been interpreted in all sorts of ways, and it's only recently I told my cousin, actually I have a poem for your mother, because I'm very secretive about, my writing, and I don't like to explain how it came about or where I wrote it. But I think for young writers, it's good to put in that sense of place, to identify it, maybe not too much, but give it that sense of place. Small towns always remind me of death. My hometown lies calmly amidst the trees. It is always the same in the summer or winter, with the dust flying or the wind howling down the gorge. Just the other day, someone died. In the dreadful silence, we wept, looking at the sad wreath of tuberose. Life and death, life and death. Only the rituals are permanent. The river has a soul. In the summer, it cuts through the land like a torrent of grief. Sometimes I think it holds its breath, seeking the land of fish and stars. The river has a soul. It knows, stretching past the town, from the first drop of rain to dry earth and mist on the mountain tops. The river knows the immortality of water. A shrine of happy pictures marks the days of childhood. Small towns grow with anxiety for future generations. The dead are placed pointing west. When the soul rises, it will walk into the golden east, into the house of the sun. In the cool bamboo, restored in the sunlight, life matters like this. In small towns by the river, we all want to walk with the gods. And this one is I've been experimenting with folklore, trying to give a new take on it, and we did a compilation recently, an anthology, Divining Dante, celebrating the 700th death anniversary, something, and it was, in 3 parts, like hell, purgatorio, and then paradiso, like that. But I put a folkloric take on it, and this one is called Innocent Danger. This is something different. It's actually written for, you must be familiar with Romulus Rom Whittaker, the crocodile park man in Chennai, and he's the snake expert of India. He's from New York, America actually, quite elderly now. And his wife had requested something for him. He actually came to Leporiang under the Guardian newspaper. They had sent people there because Rom was looking for this new type of king cobra, and they did find something called the Bartha, but he couldn't quite identify it again. They had to leave. So in an interview, I heard him saying, snakes are much maligned, but actually it's a kind of innocent danger, when they strike. So that stuck with me, innocent danger. And on that I based a story I had read, recorded by Verrier Elwin in Myths of the Northeast Frontier. What happened to the snakes? We have a lot of stories about, all the creatures that we live with and how they came about, what they were before. So this was very interesting, what happened to the snakes. Because apparently we stole the beads of the snake. Snakes used to wear beads, and we stole, and that is why, in short, we have this great enmity with, man and snake, and why we're afraid. I found this very fascinating. I imagined snakes with beads, and that became even more scary, the whole image. So anyway, this is for Rom Whittaker, and it's Innocent Danger. My grandfather said, wear your beads. I'll give you a tongue lashing if you lose your inheritance. Red, yellow, black, white. Once upon a time, we wore beads. Brothers and friends with the salt crab, tiger and bear, until we met the sons of Tani, chasing a thief, they said. Guilty or not, one day, long ago, we were deprived of our beads. Elder brother lost his fangs, cursed with flies and hornets into a pit of loathing. We survived to dwell in other worlds, climbing to the sky in a map of stars, curled around an ancient staff in a symbol of healing. No one remembers, but I remember what happened to us. Faced with extinction, in the inscrutable moment of a sudden encounter, pay heed. Venom is a bitter drop triggered by the memory of our lost beads. There are places where we thrive. In Leporiang, we met a man, not sinister, his eyes aglow with wonder, asking, what is Bartha? The wise ones would say, one of us, there is no necessary other. If you remember, we were a symphony in tune of life and minstrels together. In the garden of time, the crocodile carries the sun, sailing free under Polaris, the wandering turtle wanders, playing his flute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing a beautiful poem from the folk tale-ish nature. So this is a beautifully curated session, and there are so many different voices coming together and emerging, experimenting voices, definitely. And so with that, so Samujal is also a performance poet in a way. So I didn't know what he would do, so I wanted to save that for the last, and not And this session is put together beautifully by Lubna. So thanks to her. So Samudra, would you like to take the stage? You can go anywhere. See, this is why I'm scared of all of us performing poets. Suddenly someone called to read me a poem and I used to put a plastic and they were like, this you're going to... So yeah, I don't know what you'll do. So whatever you want to do, the stage is yours.
I'm just reading out. Somehow I got a contextual reasoning for the selection of this piece because this session after tea break started with inaugurating, going home. And after that, I heard that word home several times in this entire session. Then we talked, and we are actually talking, and we will keep talking about displacement and the idea of home and house and expressing the self and everything. In that way, I think this selection is relevant for today. And only one, actually two, actually some part of 6 pieces. It's a part of a performance project, and I call myself a disposable poet. And the kind of performance I do, I call it disposable theater. And this project was called as Disposable House, and it was subtitled as The Imagery of Home and House in Individual and Collective Memories. Now you can get it, how complicated it might be. And one more thing is, actually, I am not very comfortable sitting on the stage in many a time, because a few time ago I was sitting as a spectator. Now I am the actor. When the transition happens, when am I an actor and when I am spectator? So that confusion is very tricky and very complicated one, philosophically, psychologically, in all senses. So this is the grounding. I exit in, I enter out. I exit in, I enter out. There is somebody else dwelling inside my house. Neither I can see nor I can touch, beyond of my knowledge. Though I hardly know his name, I can feel his grief. We stay in the same house, but we are far apart. No postman ever came in search of him. The telephone never rang for him. I mostly buy vegetables for him as well. When I do it for me, I care for him. I cannot lock my house while going out, since he never comes out of the house. He never sleeps properly like someone suffering from asthma. Because of him, I do wake up many times during the night. The moment I play a ektara, you pick up the percussion. But who is there to play the false note? I can't guess. You prepare the color and I paint the canvas with passion. But who is there to make it a mess? I go in and come out all the time looking for him. I go in and come out, I go in and come out, go in and come out. And a time comes when I don't know if I'm inside or outside. I exit in, I enter out. This is the one part, and I'm going for the next. If you don't stop me, I will go next, maybe? Okay. There's a house inside the house. Dear, amongst the crowd, I do search for you. There's a house inside the house. And there's a house in the house that is again inside the house. And there's a house in the house that is inside the house of that house. And there is a house inside the house of that house, which is inside the house of that house, which is again inside the house of another house. And then another house inside the... I don't know which house you live in. Where do you inhabit? I entered a house looking for you, and you enter another house. I enter another house, and you go inside the different one. Thus I spend my days. It's been a long time. I am neither inside of the house nor outside actually. I don't know how many houses are there inside my house. I don't even know who built this house. I just know that you are there somewhere. You are there. You are there. You are there with a constant stare. Thanks.
Thank you so much, bro, for the beautiful poem. And so, with that, we almost come to the end of a session, thankfully, and thank you for giving space for poetry. I want to reiterate this again and again. So I also want to, with that, I want to have a round of applause for Lubna, who is the director of the Ziro Literary Festival, creating this confluence of beautiful voices put together, apart from Mohammed, who is always there. I want to end this session with a poem, and that because I feel poetry and love is so interconnected and a part of everyday life. எனக்கு எல்லா பாஷை தெரியாது ஆனா அன்பு புரியும் मुझे सारी भाषाएं तो नहीं आती पर प्यार समझ आता है I don't know all languages but I understand love আমি সব ভাষা জানি না কিন্তু ভালোবাসা বুঝি মই সব ভাষা না জানো কিন্তু প্রেমর ভাষা জানো मला सगळ्या भाषा माहित नाहीये पण प्रेम माहित आहे मला Love and poetry can be found anywhere. It can be found in Kabir's Dohas, Namdev and Tukaram's Abhangs, Tiruvalluvar's Tirukurals, or the Baul Geet of Bengal, or in the Bhatiyali songs of Assam, or in a swelling Siam, or in the tick marks of WhatsApp, or in the swag of a mohawk hairstyle. Love sticks out like the tongue of a Kali, suckles like a baby on its mother's breast, trickles like raindrops from tendrils, rolls down like beads of sweat while love-making, drives at 200 miles per hour without a seatbelt, and faints at nothing. Love and poetry faint at nothing. Love and poetry are fearless. Thank you. Thank you for having all of us and poetry as well.
Good afternoon once again. Amongst our midst, we have Sri Baminive, Honorable DC, Lower Subansiri District, and also Sir Gyati Kajo, DIPRO, Lower Subansiri, Arunachal Pradesh. And now I would like to welcome on stage Ms. Subitaba. I would also like to welcome our father, our principal, Dr. Father Alvin Nandoj, to receive a token of love from Miss Suvitama. She wants to donate this book to our library.
Thank you, Ms. Subitaba, for your gift to the library. I'm sure that our students will benefit from this. Thank you for your presence at this Ziro Literary Festival. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our Honorable DC Sir, Shri Bamin Nime, who has made it to the festival. Though at the last moment he was really keenly interested to come here. And incidentally today he was very busy. I think under his leadership, under his mobilization, finally our ALG has got the Dornier aircraft has landed. So I think a big round of applause. Soon we'll be flying in the skies, not on the roads. Welcome, sir. And welcome to Shri Gyati Kacho, the Dipro of Lower Subansiri district. He's a long-standing friend of St. Claret College as well. Hearty welcome to you both, sir.
Thank you, Father Principal. I consider it a great honor to welcome our today's chief guest, Ma'am Coach Rina, to continue our event by sharing some words with us.
A very good afternoon to all. Distinguished speakers, guests, Deputy Commissioner, Lower Subansiri District, Principal of St. Claret's College and faculty members, friends from media fraternity, beloved brothers, sisters, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I would like to extend my thanks to the organizing committee for being so thoughtful to invite me for this special event. I am very delighted to be a part of this August gathering for the inauguration of the 3rd edition of the Ziro Literary Festival. It has been an absolute pleasure and privilege to listen live to the renowned literary figures, stalwarts like Padma Shri, Madam Mamang Dai, whom we have very deep reverence, for whom we have very deep reverence, and other pioneer and eminent writers, authors, poets, journalists who have gathered from across the country and parts of Northeast region and our own state. I heartily welcome you all to Ziro. Today's experience to just listen to the panel discussions and intense poetry sessions has been highly stimulating and enlightening for me. I believe that learning is a continuous process in life, and therefore I shall always cherish this wonderful experience here with you all. We have been reading and hearing about such events taking place in various parts of the world, like Berlin, then we have Jaipur Literary Festival, Kolkata Lit Fest and all. It is really commendable that such literary event is being organized annually in our state too. And this itself is a budding step towards being a very progressive society. This type of event provides a platform to showcase both the professional as well as the immature literary works, facilitating exchange and fertilization of ideas and cross-cultural exchanges. This also gives an opportunity to our aspiring writers to interact, build the network, and learn from each other to accomplish the goals in the profession. Various forms of expression such as art, music, literature, etc. is an extension of individual and has always been referred as a mirror of the society. Such literary festivals can largely be leveraged to engage in conversations and discussions on issues plaguing the society, and can be a potent medium to promote, preserve, and also to assert the indigenous identity. Creative channelization of energy, whether through literature, arts, or sports, music, will aid in dissuading our youths from antisocial activities. While we rejoice the success of Ziro Literary Festival and Ziro Music Festival, we as a society are equally duty-bound to be very vigilant and guard Ziro Valley from becoming a breeding ground for social crimes such as indulging in drug abuse, drug and human trafficking. I take this opportunity to appeal my young brothers and sisters to say no to drug abuse. Please, please do not get enticed into the death trap and spare yourself and spare your family from the pain and sufferings. Rather, be a part of such interesting events where you can explore new horizons and venture into a more thrilling journey of self-discovery and emancipation, which will definitely lead you towards a more beautiful path. Since the Ziro Music Festival is also in the onville, I take this platform as an opportunity to congratulate the organizers for making the festival single-use plastic-free this year onwards. As thousands, yes, a big round of applause to the organizers. As thousands continue to throng to attend the festival, we need to assess and implement the ecological carrying capacity of the lovely valley and put in place a more robust waste disposal system to tackle the colossal carbon footprints of the visitors. We have to strive towards setting an example of community stewardship for sustainable tourism also. As ZFM attracts people from far-flung areas to witness the traditional ethos of the Apatani community blended with modern music extravaganza, I also wish that ZFM be a flag bearer of eco-friendly festival at some juncture. With this, it is my immense pleasure to congratulate the organizers and St. Claret's College for the great arrangement in making this event a grand success. May Ziro Literary Festival continue to grow in the years to come in terms of scale and impact. We all are aware that recently a new academic block of the St. Claret's College has been inaugurated by our Honorable CM of the state. So I heartily congratulate the principal St. Claret's College and the management team. I have a long association with this college, which reminds me that an herbal garden was to be developed in the college premises. It can also be extended as a nutri garden. Many seeds and saplings of local fruit plants varieties like pear, peach, plum, cherry, etc. can be grown in the garden. The fruits of such plants can be enjoyed by our college children, and they will also enhance the birds and butterfly diversity in and around the campus. Placing my sincere suggestion, I humbly appeal to the college management under the guidance of Father Alvin to take the initiative and make St. Claret's College a first ever single-use plastic-free institute in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. With these words, I wish you all to have a wonderful stay in Ziro. I hope that you all may take good memories of the place and the people. I also, since the Deputy Commissioner is here, I also congratulate him and his team for the success that very soon we will be having the flights landing in the beautiful valley of Ziro. To conclude my speech, I would like to quote Rabbi Darfon. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Work humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Ma'am Coach Rinya, for your encouraging words. Now, as the program comes to an end, I would like to thank all the people who are present here, the writers, the journalists, the filmmakers who came all over from India, and the students who have been such a supportive audience. Therefore, we come to the end of this program. That is the third edition, today's program I mean. That is the third edition of Ziro Literary Fest, organized by St. Claret College in collaboration with Phoenix Rising. Thank you.
He's retired from the government of Arunachal and as an advisor at EC. Now he's working with the CBCFDI office in Guwahati. It is a mission and they have 6 hospitals in Northeast India and he has written a book regarding the 6 hospitals in Northeast India. So I present this.
Once again, thank you, Ma'am Cheryl, Susan, Tada. Thank you for your contribution to the college library. I'm sure the students will benefit from this, all the readers as well. May I now request all the guests to proceed backstage. Lunch is being served for you there. Thank you. Sorry, we will have a photo session now. The guests may please come up on the stage.
Hello? Yes. The students, you'll be provided a refreshment backside. Okay. Please stay back. Stay for the come up for the photo session.
Can you please oversee Please.
Students also. Students. Come, students. Come fast. Yes, sir.